What happens when a talk show host tries to tear someone down but ends up giving them a platform to shine? When Carrie Underwood was cornered by a bold liberal host, she didn't just defend herself, she owned the moment. Her powerful clapback went viral, leaving people in awe. How did she turn the tables and steal the spotlight? Watch and find out. The atmosphere in the studio is electric, the kind of energy that makes you lean forward, anticipating what comes next. Carrie Underwood had agreed to appear on Live Tonight with Melanie Hayes, a talk show notorious for its provocative style and hard-hitting interviews. Known for her poise and grace, Carrie was no stranger to the spotlight. With multiple Grammy wins, sold-out tours, and a decades-long career, she had handled tough questions before. But this was different. Melanie Hayes had built a reputation for creating viral gotcha moments. And tonight, Carrie was her target. From the moment Carrie walked onto the stage, the tension was palpable. Dressed in an elegant navy pantsuit, she exuded quiet confidence. The audience cheered, but Melanie's knowing smile hinted at something more calculated plan in motion. The interview started with the usual small talk, Carrie's latest album, her tour schedule, and life as a working mom. She answered with warmth and sincerity. But soon the questions took a sharp turn. Melanie leaned forward, her tone shifting. You've been quite vocal about your personal values, especially on certain social issues. Do you think it's responsible for someone in your position to share views that some might find divisive? It was a loaded question, designed to put Carrie on the defensive. A murmur rippled through the audience as they sensed the shift in tone, but Carrie didn't flinch. She smiled slightly, taking a moment before responding. I believe everyone is entitled to their own opinion, she said, her voice steady. As an artist, my job is to share my truth, not to tell others what to believe. A smattering of applause broke out, but Melanie wasn't done. She leaned back, her expression sharp. Fair enough, she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. But don't you worry that by sticking to your beliefs, you risk alienating some of your fans. Carrie tilted her head, her confidence unwavering. I think my fans know who I am, she replied. They've supported me for years because they appreciate honesty. I trust them to make their own decisions, just as I make mine. The room was silent for a beat. Melanie saw her opening and seized it. But what if your beliefs don't align with progress? She pressed. Isn't there a risk of seeming out of touch? A light gasp rippled through the crowd. The stakes had just been raised. Carrie's expression remained calm, but there was a slight shift in her posture, a quiet sign of resolve. She took a deep breath, then spoke. Out of touch, she echoed, as if weighing the words carefully. That's an interesting way to put it. But to me, holding on to values like kindness, integrity, and faith isn't about being outdated, it's about staying grounded. The audience erupted in applause, a surge of support that even Melanie hadn't expected. Carrie leaned forward slightly, her presence commanding but never aggressive. The energy in the room had shifted. Whatever trap Melanie had tried to set had backfired spectacularly. Melanie, it's easy to sit here and label someone's beliefs as outdated just because they don't align with a specific perspective. But aren't we here to celebrate diversity? Not just in appearance, but in thought as well. Melanie was momentarily stunned by Carrie's sharp yet graceful response. She was about to interject, but Carrie continued, her voice growing steadier. We live in a world where people are quick to speak, quick to judge, rather than trying to understand. I think we've forgotten how to have real conversations, ones where we don't have to agree, but we can still respect one another. The entire studio fell silent. But this time, it wasn't awkward, it was the kind of silence that follows a profound truth. A moment that made people think. Even Melanie seemed momentarily at a loss for words, her usual confidence slightly shaken. Sensing the shift in the atmosphere, Carrie leaned back in her chair with a slight smile. I don't expect everyone to see the world the way I do. I just want to share my stories, my music, and my values. If someone connects with it, that's wonderful. If not, that's okay too. But one thing I will never do is apologize for being myself. The audience erupted into applause, with some even rising to their feet in support. Melanie, clearly trying to regain her composure, forced a smile. Well, you certainly know how to make your point, she said, attempting a lighthearted tone. Carrie returned a polite smile, her gaze unwavering. I believe that when you truly stand for something, you should stand by it, she replied simply. But what made Carrie's moment so powerful wasn't just that she silenced Melanie, it was how her words resonated beyond the studio. As the applause slowly died down, the energy in the room had completely shifted. Melanie Hayes, who was known for dominating every conversation, now seemed more cautious, her usual sharpness dulled by Carrie's quiet confidence. She hadn't expected Carrie to remain so composed, and that clearly threw her off. Trying to regain control, Melanie quickly shuffled through her notes, steering the conversation toward a safer topic. "Carrie," she said with a forced smile, "there's no denying your passion, and I'm sure your fans truly appreciate that." Carrie nodded, a glimmer of wit in her eyes. "I think passion is something we could all use a little more of, don't you?" The subtle jab didn't go unnoticed. A ripple of laughter spread through the audience, followed by another wave of applause. Melanie chuckled awkwardly, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She hurriedly moved to wrap up the interview, but the damage had already been done. Carrie hadn't just dodged Melanie's trap, she had turned the entire moment into a testament to authenticity and strength. Backstage, producers whispered among themselves. The buzz over Carrie's response was already spreading like wildfire through the studio. Clips of the exchange were being flagged as viral content, and social media teams were preparing to post them before the show had even ended. In the audience, a middle-aged man leaned over to his wife. That was impressive. She really held her ground. His wife nodded, admiration in her eyes. "We need more people like her, people who stand up for what they believe in." In the green room, Carrie's team exchanged knowing glances. "This is going to explode online," an assistant murmured to a colleague, and they were right. Minutes after the show ended, social media erupted with clips of Carrie's response. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram were flooded with posts praising her poise and conviction. Hashtags like Carrie Underwood response and authenticity matters quickly began trending. Fans and even people who had never followed Carrie before applauded how she handled the situation, while some of Melanie's usual supporters criticized her for the confrontational approach. Carrie just gave her a masterclass. One comment read, accompanied by a gif of a standing ovation. But it wasn't just social media taking notice. By the next morning, major news outlets had picked up the story. Headlines read, "Carrie Underwood stands her ground in heated interview, country star goes viral for powerful clapback." This wasn't just a viral moment, it had sparked a larger conversation about respect, authenticity, and standing by your beliefs. As the world continued to talk about the interview, Carrie remained calm and collected, reflecting on the moment with quiet confidence. The next morning, she woke up to a flood of messages from friends, family, and fans. News articles, viral clips, and messages of support were everywhere. Carrie Underwood hadn't just made an impression in last night's interview, she had created a moment that would be remembered. Each comment praised her confidence and grace. But validation wasn't what Carrie was after. For her, the real impact came from messages sent by ordinary people, those who saw themselves in her story. One message in particular stood out. It was from a young woman named Anna in Montana. "I watched your interview last night," the message read. "I've always had trouble speaking up for myself, but seeing you hold your ground inspired me. Thank you for showing me it's okay to use my voice." Carrie smiled, deeply moved. This was what made everything worthwhile. It was never about fame or headlines, it was about connection, about making a difference, no matter how small. Meanwhile, the conversation had taken on a life of its own. Morning talk shows debated the interview, with many criticizing Melanie's approach. "There's a fine line between tough questioning and unfair ambush," one commentator noted. Carrie didn't just respond, she gave a masterclass in grace under pressure. But it wasn't just the media reacting. People from all walks of life shared their own experiences of feeling judged or underestimated. Social media became a hub for these discussions, with hashtags like Grace Under Pressure and Respect Matters trending for days. Even Melanie Hayes faced backlash. Clips of her shocked expression spread online, often captioned, "When the plan backfires." Her usual supporters started questioning her methods, and some even called for her to apologize. Carrie, however, refused to engage in the controversy. When a reporter caught up with her outside a Nashville recording studio, asking for her thoughts on the viral moment, she simply smiled and said, "I'm just glad people are talking about kindness and respect. That's what really matters." Her response only deepened the public's admiration. Articles highlighted her as a role model, and fans defended her against critics. It became clear this moment wasn't just about one interview, it was about the values people wanted to see in public figures. But while the world debated, Carrie remained focused. She wanted to use this momentum for something meaningful. A week later, back at home in Nashville, she sat on her back porch, sipping tea as the sun set. The chaos of the past few days had begun to settle, but the impact of that night still lingered. She had watched as discussion spread from classrooms to offices about respect, authenticity, and the courage to stand firm in a world that often pressures people to conform. She hadn't planned it, but she welcomed the shift. Her manager suggested taking advantage of the buzz, maybe a follow-up interview or a short documentary about standing up for yourself. But Carrie wasn't interested in capitalizing on the moment. Instead, she chose to do something that aligned with her values. A few days later, she announced that a portion of her upcoming tour's proceeds would go toward organizations promoting respectful communication. She also wanted to empower young people to express their beliefs without fear. The response was overwhelming. People saw her not just as someone who spoke about integrity, but as someone who lived it. Reflecting on everything, Carrie felt a deep sense of peace. Sometimes she thought we find ourselves in tough situations just to remind us of who we are and what we stand for. Her thoughts echoed in her mind as she posted a message to her fans alongside a candid photo from her latest performance. Thank you all for your kindness and support. Remember, standing up for yourself doesn't mean tearing someone else down. It means being true to who you are and letting that speak for itself. Stay strong. Stay kind. The post quickly went viral. Thousands of fans shared it, adding their own stories of finding the courage to stand up for themselves. What started as one moment had turned into something bigger, a movement centered around respect, resilience, and the power of staying true to yourself. As Carrie stepped onto the stage for her next concert, the roar of the crowd reminded her of an important truth. Sometimes, the strongest voice is the one that speaks with grace and conviction. Standing your ground isn't about winning arguments, it's about inspiring others to find their own voice too.